Hi, and welcome to part 9 of this series on how to build your own DIY EDM machine. And in this series I'm going to discuss how you can adjust the machine. And with adjustment I mean how you can make sure that the wire of the wire EDM machine, the wire that cuts the workpiece, is exactly perpendicular to the workpiece table. Because if there is a misalignment and you cut your workpiece, then your workpiece won't be square. So this alignment is really important. So there are several steps in order to do so, and I will explain that in this video. So I hope you enjoy. So the first alignment that I need to do is to align the workpiece table and to align the rotation along this axis. So the rotation in this plane. And in order to align that, you need to move the axes and check if it's perpendicular to the reference edge in the workpiece table here. Now, in order to do so, I made this little contraption, which is a dial indicator that I can attach to the moving C-arc, and then we can make the movement along the axis to see if it's parallel. So I'm gonna mount this little device here now, and then yeah, we can gauge to see if everything's parallel. So I attach the gauge to the arm. We can now start the alignment for the rotation along the Z-axis. So the degree of freedom that rotates the workpiece table around the Z-axis is set by this screw in the back. If I twist that screw, I can adjust that degree of freedom. And see if I can get it in focus. Yeah, that screw. So it's 2 bolts. There's one behind here and one behind here. I can loosen them, and here's a fine pitch thread, and yeah, by adjusting these bolts I can adjust the rotation along the Z-axis. So I'll set the dial indicator to 0. Now let's move it. Move the axis and see what it does. So this is about 20 centimeters. Wow, that's really good. Okay. So less than 1/100th of a millimeter run out across a length of 20 centimeters, 15 maybe. That's really good, good enough. So now that we have aligned the RZ of the workpiece table, it's now time to align the RX and RY. And in order to align the RX and RY, you need a tool. So alignment of RX and RY is really important because that determines the perpendicularity of the EDM wire to the workpiece table surface. So if that alignment is not correctly done, then if you machine a square block, then it's not squared. So that's an important adjustment. So in order to make these adjustments, you need to know when the wire is exactly perpendicular to the workpiece table. Now, in order to do so, you use this tool. So it's a granite block. It's placed on top of the workpiece table, and this granite block has 2 conducting plates, and each plate has 2 reference surfaces. One parallel to the x-axis and one parallel to the y-axis. Now the plates are not electrically connected to each other because there's granite in between. And the trick is that if the EDM wire, which runs along this gap and this gap, if it touches both plates at the same time, then you know the workpiece table is exactly perpendicular to the EDM wire, because this accurate granite block is resting on the workpiece table. So here's a small PCB with 2 LEDs. So if this wire touches here, the right LED is lit, and if it touches there, the left one is lit. So the idea is, let me show you here. This is my imaginary EDM wire, which I connect to the PCB here. So if it's not straight, then only one LED lights, or the other way around, like this. But only if the wire is exactly straight, perpendicular to the workpiece table, then both LEDs light. And this is the trick you use in order to adjust the wire. Now this tool, I got it from a customer of mine who found it somewhere on eBay. It was a bit too big for his machine, so he gave it to me. It's originally from an industrial EDM machine, but these are a bit hard to find. But you can make one yourself. So if you take 2 gauge blocks, like this, and sandwich a piece of plastic in between, like so, then bolt them together and align the blocks on something that's really flat, then basically you have 2 reference surfaces, one for the x-axis and one for the y-axis, which are non-conducting to each other, and you can use that to touch the wire on. Basically the same concept, but then DIY. In order to adjust the alignment of the workpiece table RX, that's this one, and RY, that's that one, in order to adjust the alignment such that the workpiece table is perfectly perpendicular to the EDM wire, you need to do that in 2 steps. And that is because the height of the upper wire guide can be adjusted. So the distance between the lower and the upper wire guide can be adjusted. So if I raise the upper wire guide like so, it looks a bit loose, but that's only because I untightened the bolts such that I can adjust the mechanism. Imagine for a moment that you adjust the perpendicularity of the wire to the workpiece in this position. Then you can machine like that and you know that everything is perfectly perpendicular, and that's okay. But if you now change the height or the distance between the 2 wire guides, and this axis is not, the axle is not perpendicular to the workpiece table, then you lose perpendicularity of your wire. So in order to adjust everything, it's a 2-step process. First, we need to align this axle or this axis, and then when that's done, we need to make sure that the upper and lower wire guide are exactly above each other, and that's what this mechanism is for. So it's a flexure X and Y adjustment mechanism. With these 2 little screws in here and here, I can adjust the position of the upper wire guide above the lower wire guide. Now, this axis, or this axle, that allows me to adjust it, it's a bit too thick to fit inside these slots. So, in order to make this measurement, I first need to take out this mechanism and put a different axle in, which I made a tool for. So here, this is the diameter of the thick axle, and here I have a very straight piece of round stock. It's ground, so it's very accurate. I can put that in this hole, and then I can use that to align the axes here. So I'm going to take it all apart and fit this thing right now. So I took the upper wire guide out. It's now on top of here, just sitting there temporarily, and I put this thinner axle in here, and now I can placed my tool. This one here, I can place it on the workpiece table and lock it into place with these bolt holes and some brackets, and then we can start the alignment of the Rx and Ry of the table to this axis. Okay, so here's how it works. I attach the axes, I put in the calibration tool, and I turned off the stepper motors so I can rotate them very slightly by hand. That's it's really easy. And then if I now move it, I can see that one LED is going on, which is not good. That means it's not straight. So now I need to adjust. I adjust the screw for the Rx adjustment, and then tweak the screw, try again, iterate that a few times until both LEDs are on. So I've been tweaking and adjusting and iterating, and now if I rotate it, you can see both LEDs are on. So now it's dead on. So now I switched sides, and I'm going to do the alignment around Ry. So I'm now touching against the other reference surface, and one LED is lit, so it's wrong. So what I need to do now is I need to adjust this screw here, which will adjust this angle such that yeah, I can adjust the rotation along Ry. So let's do that now. So after 5 minutes of tweaking and trying and tightening and untightening, everything is now fully tightened and both LEDs are on. So now this axis is perfectly perpendicular to the granite block, which is perfectly perpendicular to the workpiece table. So that's the first step completed of the Rx-Ry alignment. Now it's time to align the wire guides. So I mounted the upper wire guide again, I threaded the wire, and now the wire contact is connected to the LEDs. So now I can dial out the wire on the adjustment tool, sorry, on the alignment block. And I can do that with the help of these two screws. So for this little screw, if I turn it, I can adjust the head in this way. And for this little screw here, if I turn it, I can adjust the upper head relative to the lower head along the x-axis. So now I see that the alignment is off. So I will adjust it, which requires some iterations and yeah, turning the stepper motor back and forth and fiddling a bit until both LEDs are on. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I've adjusted it, and when I rotate the motor, you can see that both LEDs light almost instantaneously together. This is perfect. Note that the wire is at the correct tension at this moment. You don't want a floppy wire when you're doing your calibration, of course. So now I've finished the y-axis adjustment, and I'll do the same for the x-axis. Okay, so I did the same for the x-axis. See, it's perfect. So this finishes the calibration method, so alignment method of RX and RY. And that's it for part 9 already of this YouTube video series on how to make your own wire EDM machine. So I think I have covered basically everything I needed to cover in this series. However, I might have forgotten something. So if that's the case, then please let me know in the comments. And if there are enough items, then maybe I can make a part 10 of this YouTube video series. Now that this series is finished, this doesn't mean that I will stop making videos, because I have a lot of new videos planned of me making cool things on my DIY wire EDM machine. A lot of little different projects that I'll be doing in Autodesk Fusion 360, and then making it on my wire EDM machine and showing you, yeah, basically the process. So you can do this cool stuff yourself at home. So I hope you will enjoy all the rest of the videos, and yeah, let me know in the comments if I might have forgotten something. Thanks for watching.